Hello everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial, and thank you for buying it. So today I want to show you how I make realistic looking brownies. Let's get started with it. I use car wash sponges that you can usually buy in a pack of 8 or 10 or something. For one of these sponges I will get 3 large brownies, and you can also make smaller ones if you like that. I measure them to be 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. Just mark out 15 centimeters on my ruler and 5 centimeters on top. Then I'm just going to make a line, a cutting line here. And on the end. And now just measure 5 centimeters increments. And I use a large scissor to cut it out. Smaller one you can use for smaller brownies as this one. And now cut 3 pieces. That is what we will be working with today. And now I use a kitchen knife, vegetable knife, and I make scored lines both horizontally and diagonally and so on, just to make it rough. And I do this to all of the 4 sides of the brownie. Very careful here so you don't cut yourself. I've managed to do that, so just be very careful. I use a small scissor, it doesn't have to be bent like mine, and then I snip off here and there on all the 4 sides of the brownie. This doesn't have to be exact at all, just rough it up. And also try to round off the corners a bit. It's a very forgiving technique. See, I can rip off some as well, so. Just keep doing this until you're satisfied with the look of the sponge. Now let's make some diagonal cuts on the top of the brownie. The underside we will leave alone. Now we are ready to move on to the next stage, which is painting the brownie. As you can see, I left the underside of the brownie just plain. Let's put on some gloves because this is gonna get quite messy. Some parchment paper. And a plastic container. I use burnt umber acrylic paint. Any brand will work for this. Squeeze out a good dollop. And I'm gonna dilute it with some water. And I use some wood glue, PVA glue. This is to stiffen up the sponge. And I blend all this together. The consistency is like chocolate sauce. Just add a bit more water to it. Then I just dip the sponges into the mix. Make sure it's evenly coated. Squeeze out the excess. Rub it in. Like so. And I do this to all of them, of course. Now just remove the extra from my gloves because we're going to use that in a bit. Take off my gloves. And then I'm using brown sand. I reckon you can use any color you like because we're going to paint it later. So just add some sand to the mix. And blend it. This is to give the brownie a different texture than just the sponge itself. I'm going to add just a tiny bit more of the burnt umber paint to it and mix it. And now some new gloves here. And then I pick up the sponge and dab on, using my lollipop stick, dabbing it onto the sponge. No particular rhyme or reason here, it's just put it on here and there. Maybe a bit less in the middle of the brownie than the rest. And do this to all of the 4 sides. And the last one. After you've done this, it needs to dry, preferably overnight. So just put it on a warm spot near a radiator or something. Close up here. And then I'm gonna put on the lid. I might be using this later. And be sure to flip it between drying time, so it dries on both sides. Now my sponges are dry. And we're going to paint with the same burnt umber acrylic paint over the sand base. Just going to loosen the paint a bit, not much. And I use an old brush for this. Seems to work very fine. And I just paint over the sand parts. And again, do this to all of your pieces. I want the brownie to look a bit fudgy in the middle, so I use some black paint, black acrylic paint that I mix with the burnt umber. You don't need much. You just want a shade darker. And now I'm going to concentrate on the middle part of the brownie. Just dabbing it on. And again, all 4 sides, just in the middle. Now you can decide if you want this to dry, or you can move straight to the next stage. We're gonna make the crackling top part of the brownie, and I use the same glue, PVA glue, and some wrapping silk paper. I use brown. And I just tear off the pieces. You want the pieces to be raggedy. I think we have enough here. I'm just gonna squeeze out some glue, so you're basically gonna decoupage this on top of the brownie to make the skinned baked look, whatever you call it. Make sure to use the top part, and you just put on some of the glue. Be generous. And then pick up paper and press it on. I leave an overhang so I can remove that later when it's dry. And I put glue on top of the paper, overlapping, and some more silk paper and more glue. And also be sure to press it down into the groove that you made with your scissor. Just be generous with the glue. I just make one layer of this. And the last piece. Like so. And some more glue on the top. And now this needs to dry. Will dry in a couple of hours. Leave it on a warm place. Already dry, and I'm using a nail file to sand off the excess here. Well, I use a ripping method as well, both file and rip it and I also will use a scissor. Just file and rip off the excess. I think this gives it a more realistic look than just the scissor alone, but I also use the scissor to snip off some of the stubborn pieces. Now it's ready to be painted on the top. I use a milk chocolate colored paint. This is called Van Dyck Brown, but you can use a milk chocolate color and a burnt sienna acrylic. So just squeeze out some of the milk chocolate. And you need just a tiny bit of the reddish paint. And mix those together. Now let's paint the top. Sure to get under where it's lifted. That also happens to real brownie, so I think it's okay. I like to use a little makeup sponge to smooth out the lines that I think the brush gives the top. So I just dab it on. I also take just a tiny bit of this color on the underside where it's more baked. Just one coat of this. And now I'm using a hairdryer to speed up the process here. It's a bit hot to hold it. Oh. So this is a dancing brownie. Just make sure that it's dry to the touch. Let's do another coat. I just do 2 coats of this. Same procedure. Using my brush, and then I will take the sponge and dab it on. And then I'll dry it one last time. And there you have it, finished looking, realistic looking brownie. I hope you liked this tutorial and that you will have fun making them. You might make them for yourself or to sell, but teaching the method is prohibited. Thanks and take care!